Where's the next place we see Deadpool?
Secret Wars. I don't know if they need to do another Deadpool movie, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think when we...
But if this makes $1 billion...
I think if this ends up being the #1 movie of 2024, you don't think...
It's so hard. It's so hard to tell because it's like Ryan Reynolds doesn't need the movie. It's purely just like an act of love at this point. And this is a great place to sort of end it. Although this also is a character that could go on forever.
You say he doesn't need the movie. Welcome back to the break room. LFG, everybody. Deadpool and Wolverine is finally here. Okay, I'm not gonna. Let's effing go or LFG. What do you think sounds better and won't get demonetized?
I kind of like LFG more. When did Let's Go? When did Let's Go become such a thing?
I remember back in my day.
We used to say hip hip hurrah.
All right. This elder millennial panel is going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine,
That's
okay?
right.
I'm Zach Huddleston. Joining me today, thrilled to have Brandon Barrick.
Oh, I'm off the timeline, baby.
Yes, and Gina Ippolito
I
is
am
here.
the timeline.
Whoa, sacred.
Don't prune me.
We're going to be taking questions live from our Twitch chat about the movie. Throw out your theories, your lingering questions, what you'd like us to stick in there.
Jesus.
Anything. Your hot takes, your favorite moments. We'll try to get to some of those at the end. But first, let's get into some general kind of our thoughts, our reactions, our big picture takes as we left the theater.
Okay, I will say this, and we hear this said a lot, I think, about these types of movies. But for me, this was like a very good version of a comic book as a movie. In that, you know, Deadpool is such a weird character. He breaks the fourth wall. He does it in the comic books, but he also does it in the movie. In this movie, obviously. But I kind of liked how character just kind of made big crazy choices and we're off to the races, right? Like, I think this felt like reading a comic book in the best sort of ways, especially if you're going to introduce variants and stuff like that.
Until you said that, I could not tell what your opinion was.
Yeah.
There was so much equivocating. You're like, let me tell you something.
Well, I think it gets said a lot. Like, this was a comic book as a movie, but this really felt like a comic book as a movie, and it felt very different.
And you like that.
I like that about it. Does it make it realistic? No. Does it fit in with everything else? No. But it felt like a good, hey, you've watched almost 30 of these MCU movies. There's like a fun little diversion from the normal stuff.
Yeah. I loved it. No equivocating for me. I loved it. It was everything I wanted it to be. I thought it was, I think, like, you know, this is the first one where we didn't have, like, TJ Miller doing his
he wasn't in
improv shtick, and I did not miss it. I didn't miss the, like, well, this is clearly just two guys improvising. I thought it felt the most scripted, which I liked. And also, it was just, like, such a good, I will admit that I, like, teared up at certain moments. Like, particularly, and I'm going right to the end here, particularly when, like, Deadpool says to Wolverine, "See you around," and he goes, "Probably not." And I was like, fuck, I bet Hugh Jackman had to take a moment after that.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was such a loaded line, and it was, like, so perfect. I love the end credits, like, you know, the like, hey, look at what a little baby he was. He looked like he was, like, a little baby toddler, like, showing up, like, goo goo gaga. And now he's this, like, 60-year-old man. I just loved it. I thought it was a great final chapter for this character that I think, like, none of us really thought we would see again.
Yeah,
it felt like it was done with Logan, and that was a great ending. And, you know, Hugh Jackman's been telling the story of, like, I thought I was done too, because he announced his retirement, and then, like, 5 days later, Deadpool came out, and he was kind of like, ugh. I kind of would like to do a movie.
I thought it was a perfect send-off. I like sometimes, like, when actors are like, oh, I'm retiring, and like, just kidding. I'm like, yeah, I'll like when you come back, but do we really need it? And this was just like, oh, okay, I needed this.
Yeah. I don't think I liked it as much as either of you did.
Fair.
Shocker.
That said, there were, like, for me, the highs were really high. And I was saying, like, there are a couple, like, action set pieces, fight sequences that I think you can put into the pantheon of Marvel fights. There are a couple, like, just actorly moments. Yeah, I think, like, for me, and maybe it made me realize I just like Deadpool, maybe less than as a character, particularly Ryan Reynolds' portrayal, maybe less than the average Marvel fan. But goddamn, it reminded me how much I love Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
Yeah.
And watching this movie, you're like, not only is this guy one of the best kind of like portrayers of a comic book character, but like, is he just one of the best working actors we have today?
I mean, like, how many people, I mean, this was the movie where they joke about it throughout, but this is the movie where he was finally able to go full Wolverine, basically, right? Like, and they joke about it where they're like, hey, you're finally wearing the costume, and he runs on all fours at some point, which like we did sort of see in a sequence at the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine, not quite done as well as this, but this is the first like where he was like really in the stance, he was in the costume. And the fact that he can pull off all of that, which could have come off as very goofy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, even when he puts that hood up, which is like a goofy hood, I was just like, yes, put that hood on!
And it's like, this movie was a great reminder of like, we often kind of think we want comic accurate things.
Right.
And a lot of times when we get them, it's not, I mean, the Gambit suit in this, being a good example of that.
Loved it.
But like when the actor and you know like it has to be designed right, it has to fit right, it be lit right, be in the right context. Like him being able to pull off that suit, and not even to mention in the montage the different looks we saw very briefly of him, and they all kind of worked.
Yeah,
and they all looked great.
I think when someone clearly like Ryan Reynolds clearly loves Deadpool, he loves Deadpool comics. Hugh Jackman clearly loves Wolverine. Like, I think when they love it, you can pull it off, because I did notice we just recently rewatched all of the X-Men films, all of the Deadpool films, we rewatched all of the Fantastic Four films. I did notice that they put the Fantastic Four that maybe wasn't so good.
The Trank. I mean, well, you can make a strong argument for that being all the Fantastic Four.
That's true. But the Josh Trank version was clearly, he so clearly hated comic books and so clearly hated the Fantastic Four. And it turned out to be a miserable mess. So I think like the lesson of this is like, let comic book movies be like fun. Like make them, have people who love comic books and like act in them and write them and direct them.
Hugh Jackman playing Logan for 20 plus years is like an incredible just time capsule of like a guy falling more in love with the character every time.
Yeah.
Getting more in shape every time. Like when his shirt blows off at the end, I was like, how is this man
55 years old
still able to do this?
I will never be
years
able
old.
to date another man again.
And it's like
after seeing that.
I mean,
or anyone ever again.
Gina brought up like the rewatch we recently did. It's like you watch him in the first X-Men movie. Granted, he was cast like very last minute. Didn't have a lot of time to get into shape for that movie.
He's still in incredible
great shape.
We
but
just
it's
have
like,
insane standards.
I know, but he because of him.
Because of him.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, and medicine has gotten so far in 20 years.
That is true. When his shirt blows off.
Yeah.
I think everyone's face in that scene was all of our faces.
But he is an incredible actor, and I think most people have only ever seen him in X-Men movies playing. That's where most people have probably seen him. I've seen a lot of people bringing up.
No, every single one of you have watched The Prestige.
Well, The Prestige, you get seen a lot in that, but I see people comparing, the scene in the car where he yells at Deadpool for like 3 beats longer than you think he's going to, and it just keeps going. Like, Jesus. They bring up Prisoners, like his work in Prisoners is incredible.
Super dark. Denis Villeneuve, Dune director.
He is great. And also like truly a triple threat. I mean, not that phrase is overused, but that dude can do it all. I hope he's working until he dies.
I mean, that.
Well, we can make sure that happens, Gina, if we kill him tomorrow.
Jesus. I thought you were going to say we keep getting him work, Zach.
I don't have control over that.
But you bring up, like. He's a super likable guy.
Yes.
I love him.
And again, because he's literally been playing this character for 25 years, right? There's probably people watching right now that weren't born yet the first time he had the claws, right? Or like,
F yourself,
or at least we've all kind of grown with him. And so it's in the same way that Tom Hanks is America's dad, because he's, we've all kind of grown up with him. Like, he's America's Wolverine. He's our superhero more so than like
Wolverine's ass.
He's way outlasted Bale's Batman. I mean,
even like Iron Man, right?
Yes.
Like, he
precedes him. He precedes him. He's had more appearances, and he's still going. And it's like, I mean, as this movie points out, Chris Evans probably never going to be Captain America again, right?
We'll see.
Purposely, yes.
There's also something about like his portrayal of Wolverine has always been his face, right? Like Bale, like the Batman, you always got the cowl. Iron Man, you're behind the mask, but obviously there's shots. But like, it's always just been his face attached to that character. It's very interesting.
And he's the only live action Wolverine ever.
Besides
That's true.
baby Troye Sivan in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh yeah. That's true.
Correct,
That's true.
correct.
I mean, there was also that great moment in. I mean, I think that for me, it's hard to go into a movie totally not knowing anything when you work at New Rockstars. So for me, when we had that moment where it's like, hey, Elektra's coming out, I was like, she looks great, but like we already knew that she was probably going to be there. But when Wesley Snipes came out as Blade, I like, if my seat hadn't physically tried to throw me out of it with that real 3DX, I was fucking standing up and cheering. And when he said, I'm the only Blade that there ever was, and the only one,
I want to talk
like,
about that.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I want to talk about that. Also, Wesley with the like interesting little white goatee strip.
I like it.
We haven't seen that on a Blade in any
I mean,
films,
he
right?
looked. They all looked
great.
fantastic. Jennifer Garner looked fantastic.
Yes.
Wesley Snipes is like what, 200, 300 years old.
I think so, yeah.
Ageless. He's got to be
looks
pretty well into his
great.
60s, I
He
would
was
imagine.
at Appomattox Courthouse.
I just feel like he's been around forever, and when he showed up, I was like, how does he still look this good?
Yeah. I think like I really like that sequence where we met them.
Oh, loved it.
Matt.
Those characters where we first saw Elektra and Blade and
Yeah.
Gambit and X-23. I really like that sequence. That's kind of like, and obviously they are the team of this movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like we don't spend a ton of time with that.
It's very
combo,
similar like
but
X-Force, where like they were there for 5 minutes.
yes, though they get
Yeah.
to.
I like
get to
that
do
they
cool
did
stuff.
each get a moment though, and also like
And they got to fight.
I
There
don't
was a
know
long battle
Daphne
sequence.
Keane from anything, but I don't know her from anything. But
Jackie Loon?
But she,
Jackie Loon?
I don't know what that is.
Jackie Loon?
I don't
The
know what that
Acolyte.
is.
Yeah.
This Acolytes, yeah.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet. I'm sorry. I was working
Jackie
I was working on The Boys and other stuff. But like she fell right back into that
Yeah.
physicality to a point where I was like, she also looks like she hasn't aged, even though we've all seen that
Well,
red carpet photo.
It's
and
also
she
only been
has.
7 years for her too, but
Yeah, but like that's like a big 7
she's-
years.
she's
like
aged
the
a lot in
difference
7
between
years.
like an actor at 40 and an actor at
Yeah.
like 60 isn't. They're still. I mean, it's not that much, but the difference between like an actor at like 12.
Yeah.
yes,
And an
she's
actor-
grown a
You don't
foot
know what
or
they're gonna
whatever.
do.
Yeah, exactly. But like she's like running and like I mean I get that it's all fight choreography, but she really fell right back into the same physicality, and I just that was like truly my favorite. That was like my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about those cameos, right? You already listed a bunch. People in the chat have been asking about the Henry Cavill cameo. Dev in the Water, Green Kango asking about that. That was one that was probably in that IGN first 30 minutes. Spoilers, I
Yeah.
imagine. Something I didn't read. But do you think we'll see that again? How'd you guys feel about Henry Cavill appearing as Wolverine?
I'm gonna be
he
honest.
looked-
It took me a second to recognize
Yeah,
him.
he looked almost
strange.
too much like Hugh Jackman, I
Yeah.
think. He looked very similar.
Yeah, I think that's why he won't get it.
It kind
because
of
I
felt
think-
like the movie Logan when the younger, spoiler alert for Logan, the younger clone of Wolverine comes out.
yeah.
And for a second you're like, is it Hugh Jackman?
Oh yeah.
Because they like
yeah.
de-aged him and his
They
face,
d- yeah.
facial hair is weird. He has kind of
Yeah,
a
and
Well,
he looks
it's-
like
so
he's
it was like-
The only thing that gives it
First
away
from the
is
back.
like when you see him from the back, you're like, damn, that dude's jacked.
I thought the joke was gonna be like, oh, they've CGI'd some huge muscles on like a weird person, and then I was like, no, it's just Henry Cavill's jacked body. Jesus,
Yeah, that's
that was too many muscles.
How has he
Yeah.
put on 25 pounds of muscle
was too many
since
muscles.
Superman?
There's too many
I mean,
muscles.
also,
back there.
I just rewatched the pilot of Witcher, and he's insane in that already.
It's like him and James McAvoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
But I don't
Why do you need to be that big?
I think like he is too close to.
He looks so
to-
young.
to Hugh
I mean,
Well,
Jackman.
and I guess
I
that
think
was
they're gonna
part of
get-
the
Totally
that was
different.
part of the fan casting,
Yeah.
or the reason they
Yes,
did it.
I like
People
that
have
they
fan
did it.
cast him as Wolverine for so long.
I like that they did it. I think that honestly, the next Wolverine's going to be closer to a Daniel Radcliffe type, like
Yeah.
the other fan cast that we didn't get.
a short
or
king.
Taron Edgerton or whatever.
Yeah.
A smaller actor.
Is that how you
yeah.
pronounce that? Edgerton?
I think so.
Or
Edgerton, yeah.
Coming back to this movie, what do you think the ending of this movie means for what's next?
Okay. I hear
Right? Like, it's a little bit of like happily ever after. The Logan and the Wade that we spent all the time with in this movie are alive and well in the same universe. You know, I'm celebrating with also X-23. Laura's there too.
Yeah.
Does that?
And that maybe means Blade was saved. That maybe means Elektra was
so.
saved.
And they're just going to their respective.
Gambit's probably dead. Gambit's
Listen, I
dead.
love a happily ever after.
Yeah.
I love Logan. I was saying this a lot. I love Logan.
I didn't
it
need to
is
see him die
a
again.
hard rewatch for me. Like when we rewatched it for our breakdown recently, I was just like, it's like rewatching Requiem for a Dream or something like that. Like you're just like, it's so good. I understand that it's good.
grim. It's grim.
You need like, to recover after.
Even them
it.
showing the clip of him saying, "So this is what it feels like."
Yeah, it's
gets-
Which
bleak.
they
It gets you going.
showed
It is
multiple
bleak.
times.
I know.
It's
Multiple
bleak.
times.
So I'm glad that neither of them died.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they are both still, even if we never see these characters ever again, I am glad that this is how this movie ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like wish I didn't see that final trailer with her in it. Because that line when she's just
Yeah.
like,
I know.
"You're never the right guy until you
Yeah.
were."
I
If
know.
I'd seen
That's
that
a
But
bummer
apparently
they
that
always
was, but apparently that was because she wanted to go to the premiere. So I guess she really wanted to go to the premiere, and they were basically like, if you go, it'll spoil it.
She should have come in a mask, put a bag on her head, and let her walk the red
Listen,
carpet.
I appreciate the fact that like she's not in a ton of movies. She was like, "Can I just come?"
Yeah,
to the
this is
premiere,
the biggest
please?
role of my life. I'm
Yeah.
getting to redo it in what will probably be the
Yeah.
biggest movie of this year.
But I agree. Like honestly, every one of those cameos, I was like, I wish I didn't know about this.
Quick ranking of, and I know it's hard to remove, like whether you were surprised or whether you knew about it
Yeah.
at the time. Top cameo for you.
I mean, Blade is great. Don't get me wrong, but I was so happy that Chris Evans was Johnny Storm. Like, it made me so happy, and the fact that we got to hear so much of his accent, his like Newark accent. Having to have rewatched those terrible Fantastic Four movies, not the first. That was terrible. I was about to give one better.
was a long time
but they were
ago.
bad.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
But just letting him like live in that for a little bit was
Yeah.
very fun.
Well, and letting him go off on the post credit.
yeah, I mean that was just great. Like
Yeah.
letting him just be.
I
like, have a
do.
fun.
I love him. I just love him in anything.
Yeah.
I think he's so likable. For me, I have to go Blade.
Blade was just great.
Because like I fucking like the Blade trilogy. Like I own it on DVD. That's how old I am. Mwah. I love it. The blood rain sequence in the club. I could have that on in the background all day. But also just knowing how hard it must have been to get Wesley Snipes, a dude who since Blade has like
Gone to jail. Yes.
like
Well, and also-
has sort of sworn off movies.
Also,
and
his
come back
relationship
and,
with
like,
Ryan Reynolds.
yeah.
Yeah,
They famously
yeah.
did not get along. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Who
mystery
knows?
around what it was.
Actors always have beef for because
Well,
of something.
apparently Wesley wasn't great on that third movie.
Yeah, if you watch the third movie,
Attitude wise at all.
2/3
Right.
of the shots with Blade in them are the back of his stunt double's head
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
did not show up to set or leave his trailer. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know that he had as much of an issue with Ryan Reynolds as Ryan Reynolds might have had an issue
yeah,
with him.
and
Yeah.
bad things were said,
Yes.
sense, and blah blah blah. But it's like
Yeah.
they squashed the beef, and like I was happy that those cameos weren't just like, "Hey, I'm here also," and now I'm dead immediately. It was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're getting a fight
You
sequence."
get
with
you
all
get
of
to
them?
see, and just the fact that they each fought in their style.
Yeah.
It's not just like a jet. Like this fight choreography is so good, but it's not just like one guy being like, okay, now you punch.
Right.
It's like each of them did sort of their signature
sequence.
move.
Yeah, yeah.
And also like Wesley Snipes just tweeted out, I think today or yesterday, like, thank you so much for the love. I was like, listen, I love Wesley Snipes. I realize he's supposed to be a very difficult dude to work with. He's got a lot of tude. I would love for Wesley Snipes to make a
Well,
comeback.
and of the kind
Passenger
of
58,
hey, yo,
love him.
all I know this.
Terminal Velocity 2,
Whether I'm
two
playing
play movies. That guy.
whether I'm playing roulette or watching House of the Dragon, always bet on black.
There you
Okay.
go.
But here's what I'll say. I think I agree. I think it's got to be Blade, only because Jennifer Gardner was great in this movie. No love for Elektra. That's not a good movie.
Dang,
Her,
dude.
you know what? There's nobody that's like,
When did Zach join the hand, huh?
okay. And then the Chris Evans thing was great. Mostly played for laughs. It wasn't like a redemption arc for him or whatever. The Channing Tatum thing is almost purely comedic. Also,
Yeah.
like the comics accurate Sue is so fucking goofy.
Every line out of him, great.
But I do like, because like at first when he comes in, I'm like, are they playing this sincere? And then the more he does the super thick Cajun accent, I'm like,
So
oh, he's in on it. Of course he's in on it.
God, I
Also,
love it.
at some point we got to talk about all-time like cameo actors. Like he's now done like 5 of these. Like This Is the End.
Yeah.
right.
He's had a couple. Oh, even the Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's had like him and Bradley Cooper are just like the A-list actors that really enjoy.
He's a great
Yeah.
comedic cameo.
Yes,
He's
I'll
down-
show
he's
up.
down
I
to do
also
it.
I appreciate he was played totally for laughs. The outfit is perfect. The hair is perfect. The accent is perfect.
Yeah.
But he was still a badass.
He still got to do the
fight.
card
do the
stuff.
great-
Card move, and then he's like still. I was like, oh, to me, this movie walks a line that knows exactly when to be sincere and when to do comedy.
And that's what I meant when I was
And
like,
I
this
really
is a
appreciate
comic book
that.
movie. Because if
Yeah.
you were reading this as a comic book,
Yeah.
and it was like, Deadpool winds up in the void and he runs into these 4 characters, they would act like that.
Yeah.
Like, no superfluous backstory, no nothing. Just like, we're here and we're these eccentric versions of ourselves.
Well, and
And
also
it was
like
fun.
Also,
Yeah.
like in a comic book movie, you know, if Elektra showed up in a comic book, they're not going to explain who Elektra is.
Exactly.
Right.
You just
And they don't do
know.
it.
They assume you
Yeah.
as the comic book reader, you recognize this guy. That's Blade.
Yeah.
Even though literally Gambit was never in.
I mean, I was leaning over to my wife being like, he tried to get a movie made for
Yes.
10 years and it didn't happen.
Yeah,
And she's
yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, I just to me it's like a testament to like, you know, Ryan Reynolds obviously like writes these movies or co-writes these movies, but like there's a big disconnect. You can tell there's a disconnect in other superhero movies when they had one writer and then they switched, or
Yeah.
they had a writer and they did like the reason that Do You Know What Happens to a Toad When It Gets Struck by Lightning line falls so flat is because that line was written by Joss Whedon, and then it was like the rest of the movie was rewritten, but they're
Right.
like, let's keep in this one weird Joss Whedon line. And to me, like when other movies have like 5 or 6 writers or rewriters, the tone does not match. And this is like tonally perfect, where it's like, oh, we're gonna go for like a sincere, straight for the heart line. Now we're gonna have Gambit come in and do this terrible line. Now, like, we're gonna show a real fight scene that is actually like good and it's not played for laughs.
I hear you. I might quibble on tonally perfect.
Oh, you think it was
here's
disjointed.
here's my quick Zach hater rant. I thought the first 25 minutes of the movie were tough. I didn't like that it was other than the opening set piece with the fighting with Logan Skeleton, which I enjoyed. Like I was telling Brandon, and we hard disagree on this. I think like I get that Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. There's a lot of meta jokes about Kevin Feige and Marvel and 20th Century Fox and other movies. It was too much. I thought the movie picked up when the ratio of that stuff to actually progressing the plot, doing stuff, fight sequences, when that evened out after that first act, I enjoyed the movie so much more. And maybe this is also just my personal preference. Like Ryan Reynolds is quippy. You know, it's hard for me to relate.
Not for everyone.
It's hard for me to relate to a clever white guy.
Damn.
I don't know why that is. Again, I'm a hater.
Ask your alternate Twitter account.
I don't know what you
It
mean.
has a lot to say online.
I don't know what you mean. But like again, a personal preference, that just his particular comedic style. And I thought like it was. I get that Deadpool's always meta. It was so over the top meta, and just like that first Matthew McFadden exchange, where it's just like Marvel, MCU, universe, blah 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 blah. It was so much of it that I thought it was pulling away. I just wanted a little bit better balance, and I thought I got that from basically The Void on. I thought it was in much better balance.
I could see that. I could see that. I think that it sort of lulled us into a false sense of security. I think that that's what that first act did, so that then it could give you the gut punch of like, hey, this is the last time you'll ever see these characters as these characters. I think that it successfully was like, hey, look, like we're not taking anything too seriously. Like, you know, throwaway joke, throwaway joke, throwaway joke. And then it was like, hey, say bye to Hugh Jackman as like an old alcoholic who then gets redeemed. So like I liked it.
But
I liked
also,
that it
don't
draws
say
in.
bye, because he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, we get
clearly.
both options where you'll never see me again, or we're gonna work you till you're 90.
I like the not
Either could
knowing.
be true.
I like
He'll
the
show up
not
in Secret
knowing.
Wars. There's no way he doesn't show up in Secret Wars.
It's like when you break up with someone, you're like, I'll never text him again, and then the next Thursday night, you're like, should I text him again?
We want to shout out our sponsor, Call Sheet. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks. They're the first legal financial exchange in the U.S. where you can bet on any event, including what a movie's Rotten Tomatoes score will be. And I think I got it right. I did Deadpool over 75.
Anyone could predict that.
Well,
Get
not
on Call
everybody
Sheet,
did.
Gina.
Not everybody did. And they had some others like, did anyone else get the Red Band trailer for Alien Romulus?
I
before
did,
Deadpool?
and I peed my pants.
It was
Brandon
graphics.
doesn't-
It was
I want to
even
see
more
this movie
graphic.
so bad, but it looks so scary.
So it's currently, the Rotten Tomato score, if it's above 75, is currently trading at 48 cents per share. So if
Okay.
you bet yes on that, and the Rotten Tomatoes comes out at 78 or 80 or whatever, right? Like, if you put in 48 cents, you will get $1. You can also bet the no, or if you buy in at 48 cents, and it goes up to 58 cents when we get closer to that movie and people are starting to get hyped for it, you could sell even before the Rotten Tomato score comes out and just make 10 cents. It's kind of like fantasy football, but for all kinds of events. We often talk about the pop culture ones. It's like movies. There's also a lot of stuff like who will have like the #1 song at the end of the year, and
Will the global temperature rise another degree?
fun stuff like that.
Fun stuff.
They do have fun stuff like that. You can sign up for Kalshi using the link in this video's description. Make a deposit of $50, and the first 500 traders will get a free $20 credit. Also, we want to shout out Marvel Move. They've been our sponsor for a few weeks, and we have used them. Both Gina, myself, and Brandon all ran a new Rockstars 5K. Brandon dispute. There's our photo. Look at that.
look at us.
That's you can tell it's after because we're all red-faced and sweaty as hell. Evan was there, not running. He was doing some action photography.
He almost died on his
Ironic. If we would have all run and he would have been the one that got hit by a car, just because he was trying to take photos and video, that would have been really funny. But Marvel Move is a licensed Marvel running app where there are these storylines drawn from the comic books, written often by actual comic book writers, and you listen to it while running. It is linked to the GPS of your phone, so it'll tell you like, oh, you've run a mile or however many kilometers. But there are storylines involving like Daredevil, Hulk, the X-Men, and there's a 5K training program with Thor and Loki, where kind of like different Asgardian trainers, you go through all the realms and stuff like that.
They have you do different like paces. They have you do different exercises as you're running. They tell you to stretch. It's very helpful. Very helpful.
And it's an 8-week program designed to take you from the couch, which is where I started, to being able to run a 5K by the end, which I technically did, though there's a little bit of walking still at the end.
And then you immediately lay down on the couch again.
That's right. I have not run since that 5K. But if it wasn't for Marvel Move, I wouldn't have even done that, which was great for me. So if you'd like to try it out, hit the link in this video's description. You can head to zrx.app/newrockstars. Use code newrockstars for 50% off your first month. It's great if you're looking to, get in summer shape, get out there, get more active, or maybe you're already a runner and you just, love comic book stuff and you want another way to keep yourself entertained while out exercising. And of course, we want to shout out nerdriot.shop.
Ooh, yeah.
We have a full line of Deadpool inspired merch.
Those are adorable.
I'm wearing the sketchy shirt. Gina's wearing the Dead Man in the Mirror shirt. It's a play on, so the quick
Michael
sequence.
Jackson?
Yeah.
Well, a little bit of that, but no.
I'm starting with the dead man in the mirror.
Oh.
I'm looking how to pool my. Okay.
Nope. Run it back.
In the montage of Logan's, where we see the brown suit Wolverine about to fight the Hulk, there's a famous shot. I think it's the cover of that comic book
cover, yes.
with Wolverine's claws, and you see Hulk in the reflection. They've played with that and done Deadpool in the reflection instead. And then Brandon has the Choose Your Fighter shirt, which has a lot of the characters that cameoed in this movie, and some that didn't.
We didn't get Miss Minutes.
We didn't get Storm.
No Cyclops, no Storm.
Although we see her a little in the
We did see her in the montage. That's a good point. And we did get Thor. Yeah, a lot of them are in there.
Yeah.
Elektra.
Montage.
Check out all of that at nerdriot.shop. Okay. Thoughts on the Prime? I mean, we had a couple villains in this. You could argue Paradox is maybe the main villain of this or one of them, but Cassandra Nova, thoughts?
I liked Cassandra Nova. I liked Emma Corrin's portrayal of Cassandra Nova. I loved the effect of the hand going into the head, which is from the comic books. Like Sean Levy talked about,
did a great job.
That was one of the first things they really drew from that character, was he loved the visual of that Cassandra has to physically kind of touch the brain to like get into it. It looks it definitely elicited like strong reactions
Yes.
from the audience of like
Yeah.
body horror, especially like coming out of Matthew McFadden's
Oh my God,
nose.
that
Yeah.
and it's such a
Yeah, and
long sequence.
his
And like the idea of
eyeball
being grabbed by the
popping
head
out,
and dragged.
like, yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. I was saying this before we started recording, but Emma Corrin is so slight, physically slight, and when you compare them to Hugh Jackman
Yeah.
and
Huge
Ryan Reynolds,
Jackman?
like who are both jacked big dudes, the fact that this character is ragdolling them
Yeah.
up and down, I found because Emma Corrin looks so breakable to me. Like
Right.
you could just go and
The bald head
snap them
especially
in
kind of
half.
happens that,
Yeah, everything was done to make them appear slighter, basically, like very tight clothes, bald head. Yeah, I just the visual comparison was they look so disturbing, especially next to these big dudes.
I was saying, like, again, that character grew on me the more time we spent with them.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked their fight sequence later inside of Scott Lang's skull or whatever.
yeah.
And then, even though it was a lot of wordless shots, like when Cassandra had her arms in the machine at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah.
and that actor is just, Emma Corrin just having to do a lot just with face
Yeah,
and kind
yeah.
of body movement, but it was great.
Yeah, and just like a great performance in general. Their voice is very pleasant,
Mm-hmm.
but every word they said, I was like, "You're in terrible danger."
And it was a good. There was no like I'm gonna, take over the world. There was this plan that Cassandra had, but only after she discovers that this device exists. It was like
Yeah.
she was having just vibing in the void, was living a good
Yeah,
life.
after getting kicked out of that womb.
Yeah, and then she was like,
now
"Oh, I can
get
go do
to
this."
just vibe in the void.
I think she looked just like James McAvoy. I think they looked
I
very
could see
similar. I
that.
bought them as like twins almost.
Emma Corrin is British, right?
Right, yeah.
James McAvoy's Scottish.
Yeah.
There's maybe a shared bloodline there somewhere.
Don't tell them that. Dude. Don't tell them that.
Now-
but I found them as to be like a fun, like imposing
Now,
kind of villain.
Cassandra kind of gets spaghettied or dissolved or antimattered or whatever there at the end. Do we think we see Cassandra Nova again?
I think we will, right? Because this actor is too sort of big
Yeah.
a name to just be a one-off. I think.
And like in the comics at least, and we don't know how much they're going to vary from that kind of logic. Like it's almost like the Cassandra Nova character's almost like a non-physical being, right? It was
Right,
almost like
yeah.
Yes.
summoned from psychic energy to be created. So it's like even if this body gets kind of spaghettied, it doesn't mean that they
Yeah.
can't reform back in the void or whatever.
I think it's a good. There's two ways to go. If they're doing Secret Wars to lead to Battle World, you're gonna need a bunch of villains. You're gonna need a bunch of heroes.
Yeah.
But also, if down the line they get the X-Men really going in the Marvel universe, they could always bring her back and be like, "I'm back,"
Yeah.
because that's what happens in the comics. Like Cassandra Nova can pop back up when you need
Well,
the
and-
villain
Yeah.
to come back.
And as much as we wanted to see Deadpool and Wolverine fight, and we wanted to see like Wolverine and Sabretooth fight
Yeah.
or whatever, these kind of classic antagonists, I really want to see a Cassandra and a Professor X
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah,
right? Whoever
which
that might be.
might end up being on the animated series
Right,
instead of in live action. Because I know some of Eric's theories for the first season was like, are we going to see Cassandra Nova in the
Yeah,
animated
yeah.
series? So might be a
Yeah,
later.
because Cassandra was involved in the killing of in the massacre of Genoa in the
Right.
comics, so it was
Right.
like, oh, it's just right there. They didn't do it that same
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But you could have that character come back.
Yeah.
But great job, fun villain.
Yeah, fun
and also
villain.
still vulnerable. Like I think this movie has great character moments in it between so many characters that a lot of I feel Phase 4 and Phase 5 kind of Marvel movies have lacked some of those great character moments.
This did sort of feel to me like there's a line, Deadpool has a line where he's like, hey, you're joining at like kind of a low point
at a
in
low
the
point.
MCU.
Ouch. Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people. I'm generally happy with everything.
Sure.
But this did sort of feel like, oh, this is a great beginning of
Yeah.
whatever comes next.
Yeah. And possibly like an entrance into the mutant saga, as Kevin, the mutant era, as Feige has mentioned. Real quick now, let's talk about we just mentioned where we might see Cassandra Nova again
Right.
if we ever do. Where's the next place we see Deadpool?
Secret Wars. I don't know if they need to do
Really?
another Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
Well,
it's-
I think when
it's
we
tough.
But if
at the
this
end-
makes $1 billion,
I think if
That's
this
the
ends up
thing.
being the #1 movie of 2024, you don't think?
It's it's so hard. It's so hard to tell because it's like Ryan Reynolds doesn't need the movie. It's purely just like an act of love at this point. And this is a great place to sort of end it. Although this also is a character that could go on for
You
forever.
say he doesn't need the movie. That's like saying, does anybody need $100 million?
I
He's
assume,
also-
I
he
assume
sells his
Wesley
companies
Snipes
for
did
more
when
than
he
that.
owed
You know
the
what I mean?
government all that money.
I don't think this is Ryan Reynolds' strongest source of income. Now, according to his
probably.
documentary show about his football team, he's spending a lot of money there. So
Well,
he's got to offset the
and
cost.
like I will
I
also
think he
say,
does ads too. I think most actors these days make their money from ads.
yes, and he owns Mint Mobile, he owns Aviation
Yeah.
Gin,
Which he
he
just
owns
sold for a
yes,
pretty
he
penny.
owns a soccer club. But I will say, when you are a star, right, and a lot of his interest in these other businesses is derived from his star power, boy, it really helps your star power to be in the #1 movie of the year.
Yeah,
you
also
know?
he's not just an actor in it. No shade to people who just act in movies, but like he also wrote it. He's also a
Produces,
producer.
yes.
So it's like, you know, when you're
handpicks the director, is a very close relationship.
Right. So
he
he's
is
getting
the
3 times the amount of money in residuals, in whatever sales.
and-
I don't know what
and-
media
and
is
even from
anymore.
a non-financial stake, right? Like when he's 90 and looking back on his career, people will remember him as Deadpool.
I mean, he
right?
could still be behind that mask. They just have a stunt actor in the
That's right.
mask, and then he just goes
That's
into
right. Yeah, no shirtless Ryan Reynolds in this movie.
I
How
mean,
dare you make Hugh get out there and flex hard on us, and you don't even give us a peek at Nab, Ryan Reynolds.
I respect it. Listen, that man wants to eat some bread.
Yeah.
He wants to not wake up every 3 hours and take his protein powder.
Yeah.
I respect it.
Speaking of the football team, right? Like Wrexham, like so many people just show up in like Deadpool costumes. Like,
Right.
It's so intrinsically
Love it.
linked to Ryan Reynolds at
love
this
it.
point. Yeah.
And that's why I wonder, like, speaking of next places we'll see at Deadpool, I would love to see him. I don't think he'll ever be like a huge part of an Avengers or a Secret Wars or
You would have,
whatever.
like-
He's not going to be like a core, one of the main 6 or 7,
Yeah.
characters. But like you could see him third act, right, when that portal opens up and Wong walks through and
Yeah.
he gets to walk through and break the fourth wall real quick and crack
Yeah.
2 jokes and cut some heads off. Like that's going to be
And-
great.
That's true.
And die in Thor's arms.
And he needs to die.
They will make that. I guarantee they will make that happen.
Well,
yeah,
that's my.
So
call
is that
today.
well? Because that'd be the next place we see him. Thor
Secret
5.
Wars? Oh, I think I think it'll be a sequence in Secret Wars.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
To pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he won't die. It'll be
Yeah.
like Jim Carrey in The Mask when he does his like Oscar
or
death
Deadpool
whatever.
in the arms of Cable
Yeah,
dying and then
dying.
not really dying.
Yeah, and then not really dying. Like, that's the joke.
Yeah. Where is it? The exact same answer for Wolverine? For Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
It's such a tough one because
Yeah.
he does so much damage to his body every time he plays his character. Although if he wasn't shirtless and sleeveless, he wouldn't have to.
And in the last 20 years, some of the most iconic comic book depictions of Wolverine has been as an old guy.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Like,
That's true. I don't know. It's it's still too fresh for me right now. It's like the movie is too fresh. This ending was so good that in my mind I'm like, oh, I hope this is sort of the end. Talk to me in 6 months when I'm like, I need
I think
Hugh
if
Jackman.
you see Hugh Jackman as Logan again, it would be in like a Secret Wars cameo fest.
he's game to do
sequence.
that. He's done that
Yeah.
a lot.
I don't. If you want to launch the X-Men in the MCU and you're gonna recast Wolverine, you cannot have Hugh Jackman like anywhere near it.
Yeah,
Correct. There's no
I
passing
agree.
the torch
I
there.
agree.
Like you can't do it
it's-
that way.
And
It's so hard because, like, for a second, I thought maybe Robert Downey Jr. was going to show up in this. Like, when he's meeting with Happy Hogan, I was like, are we going to see? Because, like, to me, that would be the biggest. Everyone would be like, oh, crap.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I really thought he was done. And even, like, even not having Cap be Cap, there is a point where it's just like, don't have them back.
Do we think, in the same way that Chris Evans comes back, but as Johnny Storm, Robert Downey Jr. could come back, but as his character from Tropic Thunder?
Maybe. Or it's
Woof.
It is a rated R film. Or
back to
Sherlock
Sherlock
Holmes.
Holmes.
Or
yeah.
Chaplin.
Sherlock Holmes.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
the guy for Home for the Holidays.
What-
He's
what else?
Cameo and Ferris Bueller? Are we just going to keep going?
Yeah. Weird Science.
He's in Ferris Bueller?
What I'll say is, like, the ending of this movie is nice for these purposes. Because if this is the last time we see either one of these characters, that's doubtful, it's a decent ending. Great, they get to live a happy life, right, in their timeline or whatever. But it completely leaves the door open for any possible
It's like
combination,
Guardians,
right?
Volume 3,
I like that they're still alive out there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
I mean, there was this Kevin Feige quote saying there will be eventually another actor as Wolverine. I think it will be a very different style,
Right.
a different way. If somebody were to attempt to do a Hugh Jackman as Wolverine impression, that'd be a pretty big mistake.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Like, do you think like that means probably like to your point, maybe not a Cavill type, but like who else right now
It's
could
going
you
to
see?
be. Here's the double-edged sword of it, right? There's going to be an X-Men theatrical franchise soon.
Yeah.
Feige has told us that. We're probably going to get some news tomorrow about that. And like, they're not going to do it without a Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
So then they're kind of stuck. Do you either have old Hugh Jackman and maybe then you need to port over a lot of the previously existing X-Men, or do you try to recast it and that actor, bless their hearts, is going to have to 2-3 years after we've seen kind of still at his peak Hugh Jackman portraying the character in films that we love, right? Like the last 2 times we've seen him in Logan and this, like kind of like universally praised, the iconic. It's like it's even doubly what Andrew Garfield had to do taking over Spider-Man,
Right.
but way more, right? And Tom Holland had it easy. There'd already been 2 other Spider-Man, and like the palette had been cleansed since Tobey. Like this is gonna be, they're gonna end up. Mark my words, if they recast, it's going to be like a 24-year-old British actor. It'll be somebody like a Joseph Quinn. He's obviously already been cast in the Marvel thing. It'll be somebody like that who doesn't have a huge career, that it's worth the risk for them of like, if they get kind of backlash or if people are like, you're nowhere near as good as Hugh, it'll be okay because it's still a big step up. That's who they're going to have to cast for this.
I agree. I also think like the smartest thing that they could do, I do think that like whatever the next thing we see a Wolverine that's not Hugh Jackman is going to be like that first pancake where you're like, okay, it's
First
a little fucked up.
pancake?
Yeah, you know
The first pancake you make
first-
sucks. 'cause
it's like
you see how hot the pan
The
is?
pan isn't as even. Yeah, and you leave it on a little too long or a little too late, and
Zach
you're like,
only
I'll
makes,
eat it.
Zach only
but-
makes one giant pancake every time, and it's awful.
Oh, darn. I mean, toast, like a man.
Toast?
But like,
Who let this
I
British
think,
asshole in the house?
I truly think the smartest thing that they could do is what they did with the first time we saw Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, which is like, give us a little bit of Wolverine. Don't make him the main thing. Give us like 5 minutes on screen of this new Wolverine, just so people can be like, because if you haven't be in the whole thing, if you haven't be a Wolverine story, people will be dissatisfied. But if you just wet their Wolverine whistle a little,
Wet the Wolverine whistle.
I pay a lot of money for that.
WWW.
I mean, you could also, you introduce a version of Wolverine that is, he's more of a villain, right? He is in the Weapon X program, or the Weapons Plus program, and he's still brainwashed right now.
yeah.
I mean, that'll be the other question, right? When they bring in the X-Men, is it
How do
like,
they do it?
Are we starting from zero, where it's like an origin story for all mutants, or is it, they're coming from another timeline where they've been around for a while? I have a feeling Hugh Jackman might want to make an appearance in this like Secret Wars movie. As I'm going to pass the torch.
Put a pin in that. We're gonna come back to what's next
with the Wolverine conversation. We were talking about this before the show. I saw a great argument online. Not argument, or like point made online. I forget who said
Everything
it exactly.
online is an argument.
It's great. They brought up the fact that like if Wolverine is a character who was born 200 years ago in like rural northern Canada, maybe an indigenous actor should be Wolverine.
Yeah,
right? And like that, there's a lot of evidence that the early way Wolverine is described in the comics is as an indigenous character. It just was kind of whitewashed for the comic book industry or whatever. I think that's another way to go, right?
Yeah.
You talk about like a non Hugh Jackman type, you like put a little diversity into this role, and like,
I mean, talk about a thankless job, though.
I know,
right?
and I don't give a
like.
I don't want to please the racists of the internet, so if they don't like it, too bad.
I do think maybe the X-Men audience is a little bit better than say the Star Wars audience at that kind of thing. But I
Low
also
bar.
think that is true. That's true. But I also think like X-Men the animated series, I realize some people maybe aren't as attached to voice actors as, although they absolutely deserve it. But like when they were sort of recasting it, I was like, oh, I want to hear the original voices. And they had a good mix of the originals in there, George Buza and Cal Dodd. But then they were like, all right, we need a new Jubilee that's maybe not white.
Fair.
And audiences ate it up. I don't think anyone was like, boo, these voice actors.
And that's a great point. Ultimately, whether people embrace a new actor or not will largely depend on, are they in a good movie?
That's
right?
true.
Like, will be the
That's true.
biggest factor. Do they
Yeah.
do a good job in a good movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to one of your points earlier, Brandon, about like Hugh Jackman being in it to like pass the mantle. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
TJ Jones also brought up a good point. Do you think X-23 could just fill that role,
Ooh.
right?
I would love that. I was really hoping they would give Laura like a suit. Like
Yeah.
I really wanted her to have a suit. It's fine. She's not. They want people to remember her from Logan. She had the glasses. And,
I
broke my
know,
heart.
the same glasses.
Oh, that was so adorable.
So
but like,
cute.
man, yeah, if she shows up, I mean, that's the other thing. You don't have to get right into Wolverine. You could have Laura. You could have Doc and
I think that will not satisfy
Here's
the
what
fans.
here's what I worry.
Dokken? Dream Warriors?
I don't know how you pronounce it. It's in a book, and they don't say things in a book.
Here's what I think. I don't think so. I think they will need a dude with this and the this and the
I
this.
agree.
Okay? They need to sell tickets, and in their brain, that's going to sell more tickets than girl that also has this but doesn't have this and doesn't have this. Okay?
But I would love it though when the first X-Men movie came out, like no one knew who Hugh Jackman was. No one knew
Yeah,
who
first big role.
Sookie Stackhouse, sorry.
Anna
everybody.
Paquin?
Anna Paquin was.
Whoa, she'd already been nominated for an Oscar.
I agree. But how
You
many
don't
people,
think these people watch the piano,
I know,
dude?
but how much
You don't think I'm watching the piano?
How much piano and X-Men crossover
What's
is there?
What was her Oscar nominated role?
The piano.
piano?
Didn't she also get one for the Geese movie?
Oh, Fly Away Home?
Yes.
No, well, or I don't
Time
know.
for an Oscar.
No, it was for the
Migration.
piano, and she was great.
People's
but
Choice
I don't know how much overlap there is in the audience
Huge.
for the piano.
The
and
Venn
audience
diagram
there.
is just a circle, girl.
But like, I hope that they
Every
don't fall into the
X-Men
same.
fan
Yeah.
watches the piano once or twice a year, I think.
There's one part of the piano that I'll never forget.
We got that clip, Evan?
Roll.
But like, I hope they don't
Evan's
fall
looking
into
at
the
right
same.
now. I've
Hey,
never
what do you
seen
think of
that.
Harvey Keitel for the next Wolverine?
Harvey Keitel is Wolverine? That could have
Dude,
happened.
Pete Keitel?
1994,
Oh.
we could have had
Bad
that.
Lieutenant Keitel?
We could have had that.
Let's go.
Listen,
Let's
I think
fucking go.
he would eat that shit up. But I think
Scott, why don't you
they-
let me have a turn of Gina? Come on. I'm
I
Bad
hope that they
Lieutenant
don't
Wolverine.
cast a celebrity. I think like if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
cast a Daniel Radcliffe,
Yeah.
people will already like. I want them to cast a kind of a Hugh Jackman when he was cast as
Right.
Wolverine. I think a lot of movies nowadays are like, look at this famous person in the
Yeah,
Fantastic
and a
Four.
lot of that, Halle Berry was obviously a known quantity, and Patrick
Right,
Stewart was.
right.
But like James Marsden was not
Yeah.
known. Obviously, Hugh was not. Anna Paquin wasn't as big a name as she would
Right,
become.
right. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
This feels like the time for them to do the big reset, right? They want to get like
Yeah.
all the actors that we know as the Avengers were either like having like Robert Downey Jr. coming as like a career turn, or people who were just not super famous yet. Like
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson might have been like their biggest get.
Yeah.
But like, look at the Fantastic Four. Every single one of those people. I apologize. I don't know what the woman is from.
Vanessa Kirby.
Mission
Whoa, Mission
Oh,
Impossible?
that's right. Okay, yeah. That's right. Mission Impossible.
And The
but,
Crown.
like-
And The Crown.
But like the other.
They're not movie stars.
Right. Yeah. That is true. But like I think like Joseph Quinn was cast when he was coming
Sure,
off of his huge turn in Stranger Things.
Evan Moss-Baccarat
Evan
is having
Moss-Baccarat, like
a big
the
2
bear.
years.
But they're all kind of, with the exception of Vanessa Kirby, who's never been the lead star of a big
Yeah.
blockbuster, but has been in big blockbusters, they're all streaming actors. Do we have some questions, thoughts from the chat? Evan?
Yeah, lots of questions. I want to talk about timelines. GSU Eagle, Ellie Finelli, Dom Ella, Sarah Hatchadorian, all asking questions about anchor beings,
Yeah,
timelines.
none of it makes sense. The
an
answer is none of it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little, so do you think an anchor being is maybe the same as a nexus being? Is that a
Yeah.
little different?
I think the fact that, like, I think just from a narrative standpoint, the fact that Paradox was a rogue.
Yeah,
at this
you
point
can't
means
trust
you
everything
can't
he
trust
says.
anything he says.
Yeah.
So I think that they could take it one of two ways. I think that they could be like, look, he was telling the truth. There's an anchor being in every universe. Maybe that was Iron Man in like Earth Prime or whatever. Like,
Right.
but you could just as easily say like, oh, that dude was pissed off and he like wanted to use his wood chipper on the universe, and so he said whatever he had to.
Hunter B15 does say like, oh, your timeline is healing now.
Right.
Right. But that also, we don't know that the lack of an anchor being was killing that timeline.
Yeah.
Like you said, like
have been the wood chipper.
You can't trust Paradox. He could have just said that because, like, I know Logan's dead in this universe.
Yeah.
Though not at the time I took Deadpool from. That's another.
Also, he
part
was
of it.
clearly manipulating Deadpool
Right.
the whole time, so that's part
But I think
of it.
even more interesting is, like, why was he trying to save Deadpool? Because he said, like, you've been flagged for something important in the future, which again is why I think he's going to show up in Secret Wars and we'll be able to do something.
Yeah.
I think the TVA was trying to pull Deadpool out of there for some reason, but Paradox, he had his own reasons. And the idea of anchor beings is, I think it could be the same thing as Nexus beings. They're like important fulcrums in a timeline that matter, and it could be like a Nexus.
It's also so strange though to be like, so wait, if Wolverine ever dies, after he dies, the timeline falls apart.
No, only if
Just-
he's that universe's anchor being.
He
Yeah,
was the
but so
anchor-
if any, but like
No.
everybody has to die eventually,
Right.
So just all timelines eventually
Well,
die.
he did say if we let it take its natural course, it would be thousands of years.
Yes.
Got it.
So it's not like, oh, the anchor being in this universe dies,
And
and
you
then
immediately
next
die.
Tuesday
Yeah.
the world collapses. It's like, oh, everything sort of starts to unravel slowly, which really none of us are going to be like the Earth is not going to be.
What
here
if
in a
what if
couple
our
of
anchor
2000.
being was like Archimedes, and we've got minutes left?
It
I think-
explains a lot.
No,
to
I
be
think
honest.
our anchor being was Nikola Tesla. I think
Oh,
we went the wrong.
wow.
We went on the
And
Edison
now
route.
we're back
wow.
to the
We
prestige.
should have been on the yeah. We are back to the prestige, and that's why David Bowie's no longer with us because he portrayed Tesla, and that killed him.
Honestly, David Bowie being our anchor being would not.
That would
surprise
also
me.
make sense.
You know who it was?
One thing
Your mama.
I appreciate about this movie, because like FYI, I've watched all of the multiverse saga. I've watched Loki's, all the Loki seasons, everything. I still don't understand the difference between timelines, multiverse, all this shit. It's a little bit gobbledygook for me, and that's fine. I appreciate when they use the gobbledygook, but they don't make it so specific. They just kind of brush it off. They're like, oh yeah, here's a sling ring. Oh, here's a temp pad. Oh, you just went here or there, and they don't try to explain it because this is one of those things. The more they explain, the less it makes sense.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's,
I do too. I think once you try and be like, let's tie everything up in a nice little type A post-it note box.
It's like midichlorians.
Yeah.
The more you talk about midichlorians, the less they make sense. So just like wave your hand and be like space magic, I'm in. Okay? Yeah.
That's what makes it the most comic booky thing, right? Because even in comic
Yeah.
books, there's everything's always changing about like
Yeah.
how powerful someone is or what this means or what that means. And this week
It's all in service of the story.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is what we ultimately care about.
It's
Yeah.
like at the very end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, spoiler alert for that show. When they finally close the Hellmouth and they're like, I can't believe we did it. And then Giles is like, I mean, that wasn't the only Hellmouth. And then they had comic book series after that.
can't wait to get rid of all these hellmouths.
I mean, this.
That's what I never liked about these goddamn hellmouths. Okay, anyways.
This kind of goes hand in hand with something Beware the Dreads asked. In the movie, they say Deadpool takes place in the Logan timeline, but earlier, and Laura is implied to be the same one from that timeline. Wouldn't her being brought to the past cause a paradox or something because that would the events of Logan wouldn't happen, or did the future change? We're talking about this off screen. It is all a little.
The answer is
as
yes,
Zach would
Evan.
say.
Next question.
Yeah, I do think
No,
that, like,
it does. It is confusing. Right?
I think like what did she do to get pruned is like an interesting question.
Right.
And that she almost never needed to be pruned, right? Because if it's happening in the future and the timelines work like degenerate or like decaying, moving backwards in time,
Right,
like she would have met an end earlier.
Also, do we assume that in the Void you still age? Because she's clearly aged from the end of Logan.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
well,
Like,
you don't know when she was pruned
Yeah,
to put
I think
into the
I
voice.
think the implication was that she was pruned like years after.
yeah, because she was
Yeah.
like, I got
Right.
to have a life. Like, you
Yeah,
saved
yeah.
a lot of kids.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Cassandra
that's-
Nova
that's
has
true.
grown up in the Void. Cassandra
Right.
says, like, this is my only home. Like, I was brought
Yes.
here when I was born, basically.
kind of joked that Gambit too, right?
Yeah, I was
Like,
born in
Right.
the Void. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Just
was
the-
I born in the void?
The Bayou section.
You
the
were
Bayou.
you were brought to the void. Gambit just was born to it.
I'm giving you your void back.
Hermes
a
Wormies-
rough Bane reference.
Hermes Wormies asking, how did Deadpool go from the 616 universe back to his own? I mean, you gotta imagine that's just
the
cables,
cable device.
Yeah.
device.
Cable
Oh
device.
yeah, like he went to the 616 universe just for a job interview. Also, again, Zach Hader corner, worst scene in the movie, the Happy Hogan scene.
Jesus.
What's worse? What's worse?
No, you got me.
Yeah, I mean, I admit I'm
It's
not.
too long. It's too long.
I don't think he's a great actor.
John Favreau.
Also,
just
What
I've
about
never-
Swingers?
it's
I
just
hate the movie Swingers. I'm going on record
go.
right now.
it's just for a
I've
movie
always
that
hated it.
yada yadas, Logan getting all of the X-Men killed and then going on a killing spree himself. That gets yada yada in one dramatic monologue. Why do we then need to see a job interview play out in real time? Why can't that be yada yada?
Yeah.
It did sort of feel like they were like, we got Jon Favreau, we got to give him screen time, but like 30 seconds of Jon Favreau goes a long
It could have
way.
been him tapping him on the back on the way out,
Yeah.
and that's all we
I
need.
guess I agree with Zach on this one. It
Yeah.
didn't spoil my enjoyment of the movie, but if you're gonna cut a scene and give, I would have rather seen that real estate use elsewhere.
Brian, edit this out. I agree with Zach. That sequence was confusing because that was like the emotional point on which the movie was based, but I didn't realize
There's
it
no
at the
emotions
time,
in it.
'cause
Yeah.
it's played for laughs. And when Deadpool was jumping through time with Cable's device and visiting different universes, killing himself, doing all sorts of stuff, that was all jokey. So I assumed he was here joking to be like, I'm gonna go fuck with Happy Hogan today. It's like, was he really interviewing for the Avengers?
Yeah, but
And,
only
like,
because
that was all very confusing. And then to later say, like, that was the reason Vanessa leaves him because he was
purposeless.
so messed up from that.
Oh no, I think it was. Listen, anyone who's ever dated a guy in the LA comedy community,
Damn, catching strays.
You know what? They deserve it. Every man in the LA community.
We.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I think like you have that thought at some point where it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like what is your
It was
purpose?
implied that when he got rejected from the Avengers, he really entered a depression.
But I thought it was the implication I took away from it was Vanessa, like after he like went back and brought her back to life, he was like, great, now I've fixed everything.
Right.
It's like when people like when something good happens to people and they're like, now my life is gonna be gravy. But he was like, he wasn't fighting anymore. He wasn't a merc anymore. He had no purpose. And at some point she was just like, hey, like, what are you doing? You're an immortal being, essentially. Like, what are we fucking doing here?
Yeah.
And then he got the idea to be like, all right, she thinks I need a purpose. I'll be an Avenger. And then when he didn't get it, she eventually like broke up with him.
Right.
Not because he didn't get it, but because he wasn't really dealing with this purposelessness of his being. And that's why in the movie it's like, oh, I do have a purpose. I'm Marvel Jesus. But so to me, it did make sense that he was like, I just need someone to give me meaning in my life again. Because the first two movies were all about like, first movie is like, gotta get revenge on the
love
dude
story.
who messed me up. Second movie is like, gotta like
family
make
story.
everything right.
That's what he says in them.
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't say that in this one. That really annoyed me.
But
He didn't have a line where it's like, this isn't X movie. This
You're
is
right. Rule of threes.
a road trip. He should have said like
This is
what
a
this
buddy
movie
movie.
is.
We're a buddy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get him on the phone.
Or-
I know
or
he's
this-
one of the writers.
Or this is a goodbye movie.
The gamer MJ asking what moment got the loudest reaction in your screening. For me, it was the katana bouncing off the ground and the Sportsmaster Kevin joke. What you guys? What was
Those
the loudest
did
reaction?
get big reactions.
Scoutmaster
Scoutmaster.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Master Kevin, I will say Blade saying some
There's
motherfuckers
no-
just want to ice skate
That
uphill.
got a big pop,
one.
big
the
pop.
other biggest
Yeah.
one was early on, which I laughed at it pretty hard.
Yeah.
Was when he walks up to the camera and like pulls the mic down and is like, "Fuck you, Fox! I'm going to Disneyland," and like smashes his head.
Yeah.
I got like a big pop from the
did.
crowd.
I will say my theater wasn't full. I don't know if it's because I was at a 4 p.m. screening.
Yeah, where it moves.
Where it moves, but also like people sitting around me, they were all wearing Marvel shirts,
Right.
but they didn't seem to get a lot of the references.
They were scared. Their chairs were moving.
Yeah. But like when he made the Blade joke,
Yeah.
I like laughed out loud. Like when he was like, "I'm the only Blade, I'm the only." And I was like,
that got
"Oh."
a big, yeah.
And in my movie theater, people were like, "Huh," and I was like, "Oh, you just go and see the movies, but you don't know all the shit behind it." But still, I think maybe Gambit got the biggest laugh
Interesting.
in my theater.
Also, the line, and I like this one too, when Pyro starts to talk and he knocks him down. He's like, "Not everyone gets a speech."
Yeah,
Like that got a pretty good reaction.
Yeah,
And that was appropriate. I was glad Aaron Stanford got as much as he did.
Wow, he
top
did.
billing in the movie.
I know,
When I saw
I
his
did.
name at the top of the
Yeah.
credits.
Well,
I
it's
was
also
like, wow.
we can't put Wesley Snipes.
No, I know, but
he still got top billing
you would
in the
think
movie.
He
He's
would
above
be
the line.
at the end. Good for him.
Good for
he got
you.
sort of short shrift.
Yeah, he was great.
In the original. Not
was
the
great.
original. It was
Nacho
the-
Gaming saying seeing Wolverine do the charge on all fours was fucking.
Yes, loved
There was a
it.
couple, and there was some great, obviously some like kind of fan service to like comic book poses.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in the trailers with them jumping through the portal is kind of that iconic
Yes,
silhouette. A couple, I mean, obviously just all the costuming.
The Hulk
Yeah.
thing. I mean, all the
Yes.
different Logans, like him on the X with the
All the
skull.
skulls.
Oh, yes.
The Age of
Yes.
Apocalypse Logan with the big
yeah,
hair and
yeah.
the missing hand. Like
People did really like that. I will also say Jennifer Garner throwing shade at her ex.
Oh,
by
yeah,
being-
that got a big one.
Like that also got a big.
Yeah,
laugh.
what did he?
He
it's
said,
like,
sorry to hear about Daredevil. She's like, yeah, it's
Like,
fine.
it's really okay. Yeah. That there were a couple of ha in my theater from that one.
Got him.
Yes, Evan.
Storm Kitty 18 asking, does this mean the multiverse saga is done and Deadpool and Wolverine have officially launched the mutant saga?
I don't think we can
No.
ever declare anything. We can never make declarative statements about the
Well,
MCU.
here's what I'll say.
I think their multiverse will wrap up with
Yeah,
Secret Wars.
and I bet like the multiverse is still like a tool they can bring out of their bag anytime they want. Feige's kind of intimated the same, and like by all accounts, there's no multiversal shenanigans in Captain America: Brave New World or Thunderbolts. We don't know about Fantastic Four yet, but like so like probably, but who knows? The next time we see Doctor Strange, he's not gonna.
Yeah. I think we need a little bit of a reset. I think like before, because as someone who like loves multiverse sagas, I know it's not for everyone, but like for me, seeing 3 Spider-Men all like comfort each other and like be those like non-toxic men that are like, it's okay to cry, give me a hug, my buddy. Not enough men are hugging. I saw this statistic on Twitter. Men don't get hugs apparently. Everyone go look up this statistic. It's an insane statistic.
I keep asking women all the time, and they say no.
Right.
It's a statistic about how long men go between hugs, and it was a hot topic on Twitter a couple days ago. Anyway, like I love the multiverse saga. I do think we need like a little bit. Things have gotten too big.
Yeah.
Too
And
too
we've gone to
complicated.
that well, and you know, and some of it through the fault of Marvel, some of it not. Like the Flash really beat that drum hard, right? Like we've now
Right.
seen it in the Spider-Man universe, the Marvel universe,
Right.
the DC universe. It's just
Oscar
like,
winning everything everywhere all at once.
I mean, that even outside of comic book
Yeah.
movies, right? Like it's just like a mechanism that has really been used the last like 4
Yeah.
years in film. So maybe it's time to move on.
I think
I want to see it again, but not for like another like 10 years, maybe.
It feels like that their original plan with Secret Wars was probably going to end with like, much like the comic books did. They had a multiverse and they consolidated it to one,
Reset.
and that was the result
Yeah.
of it all. And
Give
it
us
felt
a
like
choose
that's
your
what
own
Marvel
adventure
was
version,
working towards.
cowards.
Yeah,
The audience gets to choose.
didn't they? They had that for movies. They tried that. and it didn't work.
Bandersnatch on Netflix.
No, you're right. They tried it like in movie
Clue,
theaters.
the
Oh,
original
that's right.
theatrical release
That
of
is-
Clue.
that's right.
Yeah.
There was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Zay Dragon Slayer also bringing up a good point. Other people in the chat have said this as well. There's a lot of like, Logan throwing shade at like the Avengers in this. Like, do we get a big Avengers versus X-Men and that is the final multiverse thing? We get one final round of
This is a perfect
Fox
time
cameos.
to plug our coverage tomorrow of Kevin Feige's Hall H San Diego Comic-Con.
That's right.
Because I bet
This crew again, right?
that's
here.
right. In a little bit over 24 hours,
No sleep.
no sleep till
No
we're,
food.
we're all Brandon and I have committed to hugging constantly between now and then.
Every 100 bits we hug.
That's right.
Tomorrow.
That's right.
Evan, will you remind them of this tomorrow, please? Because now
'Cause-
everyone needs to see at least one hug between.
Because we've been speculating. It feels like it's 50-50. If does Avengers Kang Dynasty get renamed?
Yes.
Avengers vs X-Men, right?
No.
No. Okay, that's
I
your
don't
call.
think.
I don't think they're going to pull
Avengers
that. They're not going to pull Avengers versus X-Men as their next Avengers.
Yeah, I
Too
also
soon.
I think like it's too soon because I think this era of Marvel fans, a lot of them might not really know the X-Men. Like as sad as that is, because they're my favorite. I have a cat named Gambit. I've got X-Men coasters. I've got X-Men art all over my wall.
Coasters, folks.
Coasters.
Who's a bigger fan than Gina?
I bought them on Etsy. They're adorable.
I've got X-Men water stains on my coffee table.
Yeah.
I'm the bigger fan. Okay.
I've got X-Men piercings where you wouldn't believe.
I think you would have to make the audience love both the Avengers and the X-Men
Yeah.
first before you can pit them against each
if
other.
it's not that renaming, it could also be like is he going to slate an X-Men movie?
Yes.
Either a solo character, an X-Men team-up movie,
No.
something like that. In between those Avengers movies,
Yeah.
after those Avengers movies?
I think there is no better time than right now. They're still riding the high of X-Men 97, just got nominated for an Emmy, which the original series never was. People are still talking about it. This, Deadpool and Wolverine is about to be the biggest movie ever, everywhere, all at once. I think there's no better time. The hype has never been higher for X-Men than right now.
And like all the interviews Kevin Feige's done, he keeps bringing up and I think if you were to look back at post Endgame, but even a little bit before Endgame, Marvel was starting to go to their second and third tier heroes, right?
Yes.
Characters, both in the Disney Plus, but even in film, characters like Eternals, Shang-Chi, right? Like those are not household names to the degree that like Hulk, Spider-Man, those characters are.
Mm-hmm.
They in the acquisition of Fox, they got a boatload of more A-tier characters to play in that sandbox, and especially if you can't maybe make more Iron Man movies easily, or that palette has been kind of satiated, right? Like, it seems like he's excited to play with. We know he's excited to play with Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
That's about to happen. But like X-Men and maybe some of those other characters. Right?
I'm excited about the expansion. Also, do we think that there's a very sad Bryan Singer at the back of every movie theater screening of Deadpool and
Well,
Wolverine?
you know who didn't make it into that end credits montage?
Good
Bryan
riddance.
Singer.
Literally good
Which
riddance.
it was, we said we were going to talk about. We'll touch on it a little bit. It was very nice. I like that.
That was
loved it.
unexpectedly sweet.
Yeah.
I
You know,
loved it.
when Cassandra opens up that portal and they're jumping through and it's like, where are they going? There had been rumors that they were gonna go back to like the Endgame battle, and I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad that this was like kind of like a farewell to Fox. Like it was sweet in a way I didn't expect. And like that montage at the end was very sweet in a way I didn't expect, and very respectful. And like, hey, love or hate these movies. At the time, a lot of fans finally got to see some decent representation of characters they like on screen. And like we look back on them now, we're really hard on some of them and less hard on others. But like it was a pretty good, fun, exciting time to see these characters on the screen.
For their era.
I love
Yeah.
the original X-Men, like the original
X2,
X-Men movie.
still so
Again, I own it on DVD. Every time I rewatch it, I'm like, this is good. I mean, it has some, some spots like What Happens to a Toad, but like really, like I loved it when it came out.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the fact that this movie took a couple digs at it, but otherwise was sort of looking at it with
It's very reverent. It's very reverent.
No one
of
was
the
trying
Fox
to
movies.
make bad movies. They were all trying their best. Well, maybe Wesley Snipes on The Third Blade was trying to make a bad movie, but no one was trying that hard. Everyone had a lot of love and was trying to do the best that they could.
And
I
these
still
are.
think the inclusion of that Trank Fantastic Four was a
I know, that was
strange-
that did feel weird.
It felt like, Michael B. Jordan's a really big movie star. Let's remind everybody he was in
but
one
like,
of these.
Also, it's like
Miles Teller, we'd love to have you in
Michael
Marvel.
B. Jordan is already in another
I know.
Marvel. It was just a strange inclusion because I was like, wait. No one from this version of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
they showed it made sense to show the original ones, which is where that Johnny Storm was from. But why show the Trank one?
I think they
I think they were literally trying to show
Yeah.
all of the Fox Marvel properties.
Okay, okay, yeah, there you go. There you
It was
go.
completionist.
Yeah, there you go. I get it.
Yeah.
We should wrap it up, especially because there's some exciting news I can share for the Twitch watchers. But one final question from Sarah Hatch-Dorian. Was Eric or either of you sad that there was no Taylor Swift?
Oh. Was I sad?
She could have been in one of those Deadpool costumes.
That's
She
right.
could have been.
That's right. Well, yeah, I bet we could find out. Weekend 2, they dropped that nugget maybe.
Yeah, it would have been fun, I think. It would have been
Yeah.
cute, like a little Dazzler cameo
They
or
gave us
something like
enough
that.
other stuff.
I was more sad that Feige didn't show up. I was really hoping Feige would be in the movie.
I did really want to see who was behind that Lady Deadpool mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's credited as Blake Lively, right?
Right.
And the
As
voice,
the voice.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and even Eric pointed out in his post-credit breakdown that, like, in the post-credit scene where he's like, let's go to the tape, they make a point of showing us that in the weird
That looked
metal
like
ball,
heaven,
there's
right?
like a weird little multicam camera thing. Now, the Tempad, in theory, can check in on any event, whether it's filmed or not, like, you know, the Endgame or the Avengers circle around. It's not like there was a Marvel camera there, you know what I mean, in canon. So it was like, oh, what is that saying that you showed us there was a camera in the ball? I don't know.
That made me think
yeah.
of like KEVIN
Yes.
from She-Hulk, right?
Yeah.
The like machine that physically had the rotating lenses.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a big pet peeve I have in movies when it's like they show security footage from something and it's a scene from like a previous movie and you're like, that's not what a security camera looks like. Why would they have that? Or someone having a dream, but it's a scene from a movie.
Listen, you don't know what technology they
Well,
have in all these different timelines.
Even the thing you cited earlier, where he grabs the boom mic and then headbutts the camera. I mean, shouldn't then the rest of the movie have a shattered lens?
No, they swapped out the lens.
Wait, and here's my
They
one
swapped a
other
different camera.
one other hater quibble. Okay, I think
How does a character fly?
and yeah. One other tiny hater quibble. So we see like 1,000 times, you know, Logan stabs Deadpool. Deadpool shoots Logan. Are these magic suits that don't get holes in them?
What are you talking about?
No, look at there's no holes in that Deadpool suit.
Yeah, they are. They kind of like see. It's almost like they scab over, but he had like claw marks, right? He had the 3 holes right here.
Yeah,
Wolverine
after
had the
how big-
bullet holes for the rest of the movie. Slice here.
When he
slice
slowly
there.
lost his
Took his
sleeves
sleeves off.
entirely.
They
But
did look slashed up to me, but
I was impressed how the uniforms held their damage throughout the movie. I thought.
Speaking of uniform damage, Rob Delaney.
Dang, dude. Let's talk about that. Is it implied that he has like huge testicles or like a messed up
It's
junk?
not even in the shape that you'd expect.
No, it looked like a potato, like the ugly potato they sell.
it's so tight that he's got a dick and 2 balls.
It looked like
They're all getting
it
it.
looked
tight
like
and they're so
giant.
smushed.
It looked like giant balls with like a little.
it
It
brick
looks
in
like he's smuggling mangoes in there. Yeah.
And camel toe.
Oh, so his angles are different. His
Yeah.
angles are different.
Yeah.
That's a
Would
good point.
Hunter P15, like looking him up and down.
I loved
like,
it. I love that I love that
You
in
wear
the
that
presence
suit?
of Wolverine and Deadpool, she's into him. I was like, damn, yeah, I love it.
Love it.
I
Peter.
love that she told him he was wearing the. I love that everyone loves Peter.
Her Peter meter was set off. That's for sure.
They don't get it.
I love that he's this average dude and he's the only one that could like stop all the Deadpools.
They all love him. They all love him.
They all love Peter.
Speaking of documentaries, Fighting the Freedmen. You ever see that one? It's a deep cut. Okay, we gotta go. Thank you for watching today's Break Room. Again, we'll be back tomorrow live. An hour before the big Hall H with Kevin Feige, and then during and then after, we'll have call-ins from Eric and Jessica down in San Diego, some other familiar faces. We'll be covering
We'll at
all
least
the
be
news.
wearing different shirts tomorrow.
Maybe.
Speak for yourself.
I think we're all just gonna trade shirts.
That's
actually.
right. That's right. We'll have some other guest appearances. We'll be doing all kinds of stuff. There's no way you can watch the Hall H panel
Heck
unless
no.
you're there. So you got to watch us as we recount the
You
news.
have to watch us.
Legally, you're obligated.
We're gonna be here all day. Mendocino
Yes.
Farms, eating some sandwiches. And
Well, I got bad news about Mendocino Farms.
Oh no! Okay, God damn it. And then obviously tune in to all the big Deadpool content and San Diego Comic-Con content will be dropping on the new Rockstars channel. We'll keep talking about it here on the Break Room, definitely into next week and beyond. So subscribe to all those channels if you haven't already, and take care of yourself this
Yeah,
weekend,
please
everybody.
do. Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
Bye.